It's not about individual cops. It's about the police, about police departments that have a problem with institutional racism in this country, which isn't surprising given the history of the police in this country, which goes all the way back to the early 18th century slave patrols, as multiple scholars and historians have repeatedly pointed out. Look, if police departments are targeting black communities and you are part of the police, you are going to be targeting black communities, regardless of your own skin color. The issue here, as plenty of people have pointed out, is not black versus white. It's blue versus the rest of us. Which is why this whole reform nonsense from Democrats is so tiring and so dishonest. You can't reform this stuff with body cameras or diversifying the police, as we just saw in Memphis. That doesn't solve the problem either. Now, Democrats, of course, want to run away from talk of abolishing the police or even defunding the police. That's way too radical, way too out there. But consider this. The Memphis Police Department's response to all this controversy and camera footage on Saturday was to announce that it was disbanding the specialized police unit whose officers inflicted that brutal assault on Tyre Nichols, the so-called Scorpion Unit. Yeah, they defunded and abolished it.
Reverend Al, you don't understand. How are they going to keep crime down in the black community and at the same time not be tough and rough? Well, they do it the same way they do it on the white side of Memphis. And they keep the crime down without being rough and tough. How do you have the same department that can keep crime down on one side of town without beating folk to death? But you can't do it on the other side of town unless you feel that you can get away with it there. I can't speak for everybody in Memphis. I can't speak for everybody gathering. But for me, I believe if that man had been white, you wouldn't have beat him like that night.
The people that came to treat him and didn't treat him, the level of inhumanity in watching this play out, and some of these were reforms. That's the part that leaves me feeling
people would have done more to help a dog out than they did to help Tyre Nichols out. And that is inhumanity.
When we don't give, particularly to African-American churches or churches that believe that the gospel is justification by faith and social justice, when I do not give to those environments, I am perpetuating the Tyre Nichols situations of our society.
Really strong sentiment is that to decrease violence between law enforcement officials and the public is to decrease the contact and intervention that police have with the public.
Fewer traffic stops.
Exactly. They don't need to be, police do not need to administer stops in basic traffic violations. I know all of us, I can confidently say, have engaged in a minor traffic violation.
Mm-hmm. Well, we buried Tyre Nichols yesterday. And that is a reflection, Lindsay, of the ongoing refusal of this country to understand that diversity is constitutive of who and what it is. And this course is just one example. And so we're in a moment of betrayal and backlash. And DeSantis is its face. And so we need to understand that for what it is and not cave to that, not allow it to frame what I take to be a substantive intervention here.
When will the brutality finally lead to some police reform from the ground up? Because clearly, it doesn't matter if it's a white policeman or a black policeman. It is a problem in the police, in the policing itself. You know, seems things don't seem to make sense to people unless it's somebody they can feel or they can recognize. But how many times do we have to, do we need to see white people also get beaten before anybody will do anything?
And Corey, when you see that this happens, despite the fact that he was unarmed and despite the fact that this was entirely preventable based on what we see on the video, what does that make you think about the bigger state of policing in the United States? Because this isn't a one-off. This isn't an extraordinary circumstance in some ways.
Well, listen, I've been saying it until I'm blue in the face, and I keep saying it. It's the police culture that's quite obvious, because we was under this misnomer, you know, in Black America, that like it's all these racist white cops that's doing these things. Well, now here we see there's 5 African-American police officers that killed an African-American male. So we can't scream this whole race thing. So there is this mentality in policing around America. In black and brown communities, the police hunt, and in non-minority communities, they protect and serve. And we saw this on display by them illegally, it wasn't even a legal stop. That's coming from the police chief. I'm not making that up. You're not making that up. So they were out there hunting for whatever they was hunting for and ended up killing this young man for absolutely no reason.
Alex, what Corey just said is interesting to me. He said in certain neighborhoods they patrol or they police, in other neighborhoods they hunt. That's not an issue of individual character. That's not an issue of individual training. He's talking about a systemic issue here. How do you make sense of that kind of analysis?
Yeah, I think there's a lot to that. I mean, you know, police reform didn't just start with the situation in Minneapolis. You know, it really begins after the Ferguson uprising. And the police in Memphis and the police in Minneapolis who killed George Floyd had had all the new training, all the new use of force policies, new oversight, new rules around, intervening. And it just didn't make any difference, because I think the problem is deeper than just the culture of policing. It really goes to the mission of policing. And the fact is that these police officers were doing pretty much what they'd been told to do by political officials in Memphis. I mean, when you create a unit called Scorpion, and then you tell them to do whatever it takes to get the bad guys, that's going to look like hunting, and it's going to look like the use of extreme violence.
Part of police reform over the years were all these cameras, dash cameras, body cameras, and there is such a casualness to this aggression. And I did watch it because I think, you know, people say it was too hard to watch or I couldn't watch it. And I thought that's the least we can do, to watch what is going, because I think people have to see it sometimes to maybe be, one, I think there's a lot of people that do realize this is never acceptable, not okay. I think the fact that it was black officers shows it doesn't matter the color of the cop, it's the
Again, Roland, my position is and will continue to be that I don't see protests in the street for children being killed in Chicago.
You're alive. I'm sorry. If you don't see it, Philip, that's because you choose not to see it. They have been protests. First of all, here's the question. Where are you in Indiana?
Indianapolis.
Indianapolis. When the last time you been to Chicago?
I typically don't go to Chicago.
Gotcha. So you don't go to Chicago. So no. Do you follow any Chicago media?
No. What incentive do I have?
No, wait. Do you know any activists in Chicago?
Yes.
Do you know any community leaders in Chicago?
I know community leaders in Gary, Indiana.
No, I didn't say Gary, Indiana. I said Chicago. Chicago is not Gary, Indiana.
Deontay Johnson, Black Conservative Federation.
Ah, you got Deontay. Oh, that idiot? Hold up. Wait. Are you sick? That's who you claiming? Dude, don't even try that one. Here's the problem with what you said. You just said, quote, I don't see any protests in Chicago of black on black. You don't know anybody in Chicago. You haven't even been there. See, this is the problem when you say I haven't seen it. If you ain't been there and you don't know anybody and you likely don't follow them on social media, you wouldn't see it. But the reality is it does exist. So, Philip, never ever come on television and say, well, I don't see it, if your eyes are closed because you never opened them. We have literally had the people on this show live from protests. So for you to say, well, I don't see it, you try to act like it doesn't exist. It does. So if you've never made the effort to find out that they are protesting, how can you then criticize folk for saying they're not protesting?
I don't know what you're trying to accomplish.
Philip, let me help you out with something. Let me just help you out with something, Philip.
Usually I ask for help if I need.
No, because you need some help right now, Philip. Like, you need some help real bad. If I said I have never, ever seen Philip in a red tie, and if somebody says, Roland,